Where will the Angels land in the 2024 draft, and who should they select? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to help out the Super Halo Bros for all the Angel content this offseason, you can do a couple of things. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. We love 5 stars. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you are not subscribed yet, well, what are you waiting for? Become a Locked On Everydayer and subscribe to the show. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by GameTime. You can download the GameTime app, create an account, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our second season here at Locked On Angels, and it's a pleasure, a privilege to be talking Angels baseball every Monday through Friday right here on Locked On Angels. We hope that you're an everydayer with us and get into the conversation. On today's show, we're looking at the 2024 draft and potentially who the Halos could pick in that draft, and taking a look at some Halos who were in the postseason or currently in the postseason, which ones we'd like to have back. But Mike, first, over the weekend, Friday actually, we got the fantastic news from the Stassi family. We found out what happened this past season, and it looks like better days are ahead for Max Stassi and his wife, Gabrielle. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, a lot of questions about Max and what happened to him this year. We know he was battling with some injuries, but there was this private family matter that really wasn't discussed, talked about, and I appreciate that it was private and they honored Max Stassi. Well, we found out on Friday, Gabrielle Stassi posted this on Instagram. She said, a force to be reckoned with. Our son, Jackson Turner Stassi, is here. Jax arrived 3 months early on April 16th, weighing 1.5 pounds. Yes, you read that right. And he has our hearts forever. We have faith that our guy who has more resilience in one of his tiny crooked pinkies than Max and I have in our whole bodies will do anything he sets his mind to. In his first few months of life, he's battled pneumonia, blood infections, a brain bleed, collapsing lungs, cracked rib, bone disease, airway scarring, and countless pokes and prods of medications and procedures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And through it all, across 4 hospital transfers, he remains the same old strong-willed and playful self. Max and I are grateful for the thoughts, prayers, and positive energy sent our family's way. We're on day 187 of our NICU journey, 214 if you count the 4 weeks we spent in the after birth labor, and we can't freaking wait to bring Jackson home. And so the word is that they are able to bring him home. It sounds like they're moving in that direction. And this is why he's been out for all of the year. And gosh, what a good reason to be out and to be with his family and to be with his wife and to be with his son. So we are certainly praying for the Stassi family. But Johnny, do you think that with this good news, it also might mean, and this is so secondary to life issues.
Sure.
But do you think that it might mean that we get a full season of Maximum Stassi next season?
Maximum Stassi Engaged. Yeah. Mike, it's tricky. I mean, it really depends on how these next 6 months are going to go for them and their little boy. I mean, I love Jax Stassi.
Yes.
And Max Stassi, by the way.
Yeah. That's a baseball name right there.
Gosh, dude, just everything that you were reading through that, like I started to well up a little bit, just that poor little guy.
Right.
And it just makes so much sense for why the Stassi family would want, choking up, why they would want to keep it private. And also why, he had to take the time away from baseball. There are just so many things bigger than baseball. And, it really depends on where the baby is and where they are as parents. And if Max feels like it's a good idea to get back out there and play again, and purely speaking from the sports side of things.
Sure.
If we were to roll with perhaps Logan O'Hoppe and maybe Matt Theis, I think we'd be okay. I really do want to see Max Stassi back with the team again from a sports side of things, because I think he works really well with the young pitchers. But again, if they're not able to get back, or if he's not able to get back to play next season, I think I understand why. I think I would be
very reasonable,
very, very understanding in this sentiment. I'm reminded of our nephew, Luke, and our sister-in-law, Tiffany, not your wife, Tiffany, my other sister-in-law, Tiffany.
We like to make it complicated in our family. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. My wife's name is Abby. Your daughter's name is Abby. It's just lots of fun. Just Luke was an early arrival as well. And gosh, for as difficult as that was on Tiff and our brother Jeff and the family and us, it was a much shorter stay for Tiffany and Luke than this ordeal. Yeah, with Max Stassi and his wife and their son Jax, and just reading all of that, I'm gutted.
Yeah,
and so I am so happy that they have been able to see that through and get through this trial, and I know that there are better days ahead. Still seems like there's difficulties ahead, in recovery and everything. But I mean, again, going back to the baseball side, and we're a baseball show, so we're going to talk about that side of things.
Sure.
But I think that we are all saying this under the blanket of, this is way less important than him being there with his family. I would really like to see Stassi back, especially to back up O'Hoppe. What are your thoughts on the matter?
I wonder if the struggle with some of the pitchers this year had to do with not having a veteran like Stassi on this roster and behind the plate.
For sure. I mean, he knows them really well, especially the way he's handled guys like Detmers and Sandoval the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that's a big factor. Absolutely.
I think his presence changes things. I think that his wisdom will be really helpful for Logan O'Hoppe and perhaps even Matt Theis behind the plate, depending on what they want to do behind the plate. And I also think that he brings some knowledge to O'Hoppe specifically, who was great offensively. But as we shared late last week, there are some defensive stats that need to be improved in 2024.
Definitely.
And certainly if he's going to play every day, they need to improve so that he can be not just great as a bat, but also great behind the plate. It's an interesting thought to consider 3 catchers on this roster, because Matt Theis could back up at first base, right?
Sure.
And that lefty bat, he's got some power, and so he could be a great pinch hitter. I wonder if Shohei doesn't re-sign and we have that open DH spot, I wonder if that's how they would use these 3 guys, and they would have somebody like a Logan O'Hoppe DHing with maybe Stassi catching or Theis catching, or vice versa, right? And then obviously you can rotate in a Mike Trout, because they're not all going to play every single day. But there are some intriguing options with these 3 players. I think if I had a preference, I would rather see Stassi be the backup and have O'Hoppe, of course, be
100%.
the starter.
Yeah.
But I don't think we lose too much with Theis, because I think he really improved. I think they have to do something with him because he is out of options. And so they would have to figure out how they're going to have him on this roster. But I think as a backup first baseman, as a backup catcher, and as somebody who can rotate into that DH slot, that is outside of if they don't re-sign Shohei Ohtani, I think that that's a great option for him. But having Stassi in this clubhouse and in the dugout, and of course, when the pitchers are really struggling, to pull somebody like Sandoval aside or Detmers aside to reinforce some of the things that they've been working on, and to say to them, like, you've got this. I think his veteran experience was sorely missed on this team, especially for that starting rotation and even the bullpen, Johnny. I think that with this bullpen being kind of a makeshift bullpen and bringing in some of those young guys, I think Stassi's presence on this team is definitely needed for 2024.
Man, why do we have to start with the heavy topic?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think you bring up some interesting points. And again, if we had our choice, O'Hoppe, of course, is starting. Max Stassi is backing him up. Then you do everything you can to keep O'Hoppe's bat in the lineup. So if he does need a day off of his feet and his knees behind the dish, then he can DH, which would be great to see him. I mean, he's just got so much pop in that bat.
Right.
And is a really clutch performer as well. So I would love to see Ohapi get some more reps in 2024. And I'd love to see Stassi back in 2024. We'll see, I mean,
Sure.
I don't think there's any rush to get him back in terms of like him dealing with this issue. And he's got one more year left on his deal with the Halos. That's this year. So whether he plays that out or not, we'll see. But it'll be something to stay tuned for. And of course, we'll have that information for you here on Locked On Angels. Hey, coming up on Locked On Angels, who should the Halos take in the 2024 draft? Well, we've got a few ideas and where they might end up in the draft. So we'll talk about all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you make purchases for wherever you want to go, whatever ticket you want to get. They help you to see where you're going to go before you buy it. You know where you're sitting. There's no confusion about that. And then they have all-in pricing right up front. So you know that you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. And then when you're buying your tickets, it's really simple. 2 taps and you're set. And then it gets sent to your phone, not your emails. So you're not digging through all of your emails. GameTime is obsessed with finding ways to help save you money on tickets. They have deals right up until the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. There's some last-minute tickets that are available. You can find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals for tickets for any type of event. And with zone deals, you get to pick the section. GameTime picks the seats, and there's an average savings of about 18%. And then they also have something called the 110% difference, where you can find tickets and get your seats. And then if you find some that are in a better section with better seats, GameTime's going to credit you 110%. So again, they're on your side. They're on your team, and they take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the GameTime app right now. You can create an account. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There are some terms that do apply, so check those out. Again, create an account and use our redemption code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers. Make sure you join us every day this week. We got different topics all week long. There's always news with our Halos, even though they're not even in the playoffs. There's always something to talk about, and they're like the definition of that song. Let's give them something to talk about. So that's what they're doing for us here on Locked On Angels. So we're here every Monday through Friday. Join us every single weekday. We'd love to have you on as a Locked On Everydayer. Of course, you can give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Rose on Twitter and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you there, and get in our comments on YouTube. That's the best way to reach out to us and get in on the conversation from today's episode.
Johnny, there was a lot of former Angels who were playing or are currently playing in October. Here's the list. Milwaukee Brewers had Holby Milner. Of course, the Phillies have Brandon Marsh. Milwaukee also had Elvis Peguero, Rell Glacier with the Braves, Chris Davinsky with the Rays, Andrew Haney with the Texas Rangers, Jesse Chavez with Atlanta. He only plays well when he's in Atlanta.
Yeah, I know.
Good grief. Martin Maldonado with the Astros, Chris Stratton with the Texas Rangers, Kirby Yates with Atlanta, Jacob Webb. I still can't believe that we let that guy go. He was with the Orioles, Ryan Brazier with the Dodgers, and Kyle Bradish with the Baltimore Orioles. A lot of really interesting names there. Some good names, Johnny. Is there any names that you would say, if we could take them back, we would take them back right now? What names would you want back on this Angel team in 2024?
Oh, Brandon Marsh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Like Phillies Brandon
Absolutely.
Marsh, the guy who got his swing figured out because the coaching is 110% better over there. Mike, you know what's funny? I know you said Kirby Yates, and it's like, yeah, I guess he was on the Angels for a minute.
A hot second. Yep.
And it was right before he had his breakout closer dominance with the Mets, right? He was with the Mets. And so it's just funny to think, well, there's another guy who came and went with the Angels. Maldonado's funny because he is just such a part of Astros lore now.
Yeah.
Like, he's been on all of these teams.
Yeah.
And, he's never the primary offensive catcher, but man, I really think he has a lot to do with why those pitchers are really good in Houston. And you think about Framber Valdez and those guys. I mean, good grief. I think having Maldonado behind the dish, I mean, gosh, when we traded for him, which funny enough, we actually drafted him, I think in the mid 2000s, the Angels
Okay.
drafted him,
Mhm.
and then he ended up with Milwaukee. We traded for him to get him back. And Mike, I didn't even know the concept of pitch framing until I believe I was reading about the trade on MLB Trade Rumors, and they said, Maldonado's a guy who's really good at something they call pitch framing.
Huh.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And
Huh.
now that's all we ever talk about
It's
with
the
catchers
thing.
is pitch framing. But gosh, this is probably 6-7 years ago. And so I hadn't even known that was a thing before we got Maldonado back on this team. How about you? Who do you see on this list? I know Andrew Heaney's your very favorite on this list. But besides Heaney, who would you like to see back, Mike?
It's funny that you bring up Heaney because Locked On Everydayer Cope texted me when he pitched this last week in the ALCS, and he goes, Heaney's going to pitch a gem, right? And I said, yeah, it's typically what happens with former Angels. And then after the first inning, he went, well, guess we were wrong. And I said, I kind of enjoy it. I kind of enjoy that a former Angel isn't doing that great.
He hasn't changed. Like
No,
he hasn't. I know he's had success
he
here and there, but he also had success here and there with the Angels every now and then because it was like, oh man, if Heaney can do that every time, he's gonna be great. And then it was always a stinker the next time out, and that's kind of how his whole career has been, even after the Angels.
Yeah, give me Marsh. I mean, obviously, I would take Brandon Marsh, but if I'm gonna try to be different than you, I'm gonna take Kyle Bradish. I would love to see what Kyle Bradish could do in the starting rotation. Imagine him with the young guys we have, and a Silseth and a Canning and a Detmers and a Sandoval. I think Kyle Bradish probably would have been our ace this next season if he's on our team. You talk about Martin Maldonado for a moment. What he's doing with the Astros potentially could be what Max Stassi could do for the Angels this next season, right? Like just be able to carry some of these young guys and be somebody who can really be solid. Stassi's pitch framing was better than any backup that he had, but he still needed to improve there as well. But I just think that his knowledge and his veteran experience is really going to help this team. Like Maldonado has really helped the Astros, although the Astros, they just have a factory of great players that have come through that system, right? Like just really good players that have come through. Johnny, I look at the name Rell Glacier, and I do miss Rell. I would have loved to have been able to keep him. I think the move was great, and then we were able to get two players because they did trade him and get rid of his contract. I know that we didn't get to keep those other players, but we did get to sign Estevez and Matt Moore. And so we really essentially got a 2-for-1 deal with those two guys, but it would have been great to be able to see him finish out his career, finish out his contract with the Angels, because he was a really great closer. And I think being just in an environment that's really good has been a benefit for him. And also we've seen that with Jesse Chavez being in an environment in Atlanta where it's really good has really helped him to up his game. In fact, all of these former Angels, we've seen moments, specifically Brandon Marsh, as you mentioned, they're in a fun winning environment, and you're seeing what happens when that happens. And Brandon Marsh has become a guy who's just a rally guy for the Phillies, right? He's a guy who stirs it up. He's a guy who gets fired up. He's a guy who's partying in the dugout and also in the clubhouse when they win. And he's so good. And this is the Brandon Marsh that we were hoping for, that would be partnered with Joe Adell, right? And that these two guys would be dominating the Angels outfield for years. Now, I don't regret that trade. I think Logan O'Hoppe is fan-freaking-tastic, and I'm glad that he's here. But I would have him back in a heartbeat. I would love to see Rell back, and I would love to see Kyle Bradish back on this team.
It's funny you mentioned Rell Glacier, just because everybody had the question last season of, gosh, Rell goes to the Braves, and then he tears it up for the rest of the season. And you and I did a little bit of a deep dive, and a lot of his situations that he was coming into weren't the closing situations. They weren't save situations. Yep. They were eighth inning, and sometimes they were like low leverage. So I think a lot of what happened to Rell in Anaheim was the high leverage situations. I also think that at the beginning of the season, you saw a lot of those bullpen arms get used a ton with Joe Maddon, because he had such a quick hook for the starting pitching. And sometimes that was necessary. And sometimes we were like, what's he doing? Let that guy go longer. And so then you do have Rell Iglesias getting 4-out saves or 6-out saves in like May. Yeah. And we were 21 or 27 and 17, which was great, but we saw a lot of those arms flame out really early in the season because of how much those arms had to be counted on out of the bullpen. And it also speaks, Mike, to the Angels' ability or lack thereof to put together a decent bullpen. I think that better days are ahead for the bullpen, but good grief, man, just for so many years, they have tried to put together piece after piece after piece, and it just hasn't worked out. And bullpen arms are volatile. I think we did have a lot of success this season between Matt Moore and what Carlos Estevez was able to do for most of the season. I know he did kind of flame out there as well, but again, I think a lot of what you saw with Rell Glacier has kind of fallen apart before he was traded had everything to do with use and not having a supporting cast around him. Because again, he's going out there and working 2 innings just because there's nobody else who can do it at the end of the day. So I think that's kind of what happened with Rell Glacier. I am glad, like you mentioned, how, despite the fact that we were all kind of upset that they offloaded that contract, I think they did play it out very well in the sense that, hey, that $30 some odd million he's owed, you can put that between 2 players rather than spending it all on one guy. I think that really worked out for the Halos in 2023.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. The postseason is here, if you haven't noticed, and it's been a whole lot of fun to watch. And you can get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you join today, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create your new account, and you can get in on all of the action. Bet on everything from strikeouts to home runs to who will win the game. And if you don't want to hang out for the entire game, you can predict what will happen in the next at bat with quick bets. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. You can step up to the plate this postseason with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Love that. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Mike, they changed the rules to the draft in MLB 2 seasons ago, and so there is now a draft lottery, which is actually kind of exciting because it means that the Halos have a better chance of getting a higher pick than they might have gotten if they had just done the standard, where do you fall in terms of wins and losses. And so let me read this information here. With CBA regulations regarding big market teams not being able to win the draft lottery in consecutive years, the top 6 odds for the MLB draft lottery are locked in before the final day of the season. And here's what that looks like. The odds, Oakland, Kansas City, and Colorado are in at 16.5%. So that means they could get a top 6 pick. Chicago White Sox, 13.2%. St. Louis, 10%. The Angels are locked in at 7.5% at the number 1 pick. So pretty good odds compared to what everybody else has too. And so the fact that they have a small shot at number 1, I think is significant. The lowest they could pick is 12, but the odds of that are really minor. So the lowest realistically, like practically, would be somewhere around 9th. And so, having a pick 1 through 9, I think the Angels are in pretty good shape when it comes to the draft in 2024. Mike, they've got some potential picks that they could be looking at in 2024. Why don't you talk about those?
Yeah, the first guy that really is intriguing, that's a potential pick, probably would fall maybe in the middle of the top 10 where the Angels might be, is left-handed pitcher Noah Franco, who also is a batter. This guy is 6'3", 195 pounds. He bats and hits left-handed. He doesn't have a commitment to a college yet as of this recording, and his draft day age would be 18 years old in 2 months. Gosh, that's so young. I'm so old. Franco's really been somebody that a lot of people have talked about. He's one of the best two-way players in this class, and he probably won't be a two-way player. It looks like he'll lean in the direction of being a pitcher. He's got a really big physical frame, very broad shoulders. Scouts say he's got a lot of athleticism that plays on both sides of the ball. He can play really great defense. He can hold his position down really well. There's some swing and miss in his game, and he's not also afraid to throw a lot of pitches and rack up a lot of walks, which is not what we need on the Angels, right? But he is somebody that's not afraid to just throw and throw and throw. He doesn't chase a ton when he's on the mound. He doesn't get a lot of chases, but he does have a lot of swings and misses. He's able to hold on to his strengths when he's on the mound. When he's hitting, he's got a lot of bat speed. His swings are with some serious intent, according to scouts. He can spray the ball all over the field. He has a little bit of power, and he also is an up the middle to the pull side type of hitter. He's likely limited to first base if he does play in the field, and it'll be in the infield. He's kind of mobile, shows some quick movement at his position. He's got a lot of, again, athleticism. On the bump, he's got a low 90s fastball with an easy athletic mechanic, and he's also somebody who is projected to have that rise to maybe the mid 90s by next summer. He's got a high spin on his slider. They say he has some teeth on his low 80s sweeper, or, kind of a slider sweeper change. He also has a feel for the changeup. So that's one of the names that might land where the Angels are selecting Noah Franco. Johnny, tell us about Joey Oakley.
Joey Oakley. I love that name, right? So he comes from McKinney Centennial High School in Iowa, 6'3", 195 pounds. He's a right-handed pitcher, bats right, throws right. He's got a commitment to Iowa, and on draft day, he would also be 18 years and 2 months. Scouts say that he has what they call the loudest stuff in the entire class. A ton of load in his delivery, a big arm swing before driving down the mound with a whippy near sidearm slot. He's already gotten into the mid 90s with his fastball and up to 97 at one point. Life and spin through the zone, and plays up thanks to the low launch nature of his release. So again, think he's got a real tall guy with a almost sidearm delivery. He could jump into the upper 90s as he continues to develop that fastball. He's got a sweeper, Mike. They say it might be the best pitch in all the prep schools.
Wow.
They call it a diabolical pitch with a ton of sweep and hard biting action in the mid 80s, and projects as a plus pitch. He's gotten up to 25 inches of horizontal break this summer, and the pitch has insanely high spin rates, 3,000 rotations per minute on that spin rate.
Wow.
He's got a feel for a fading changeup. He throws that hard in the mid upper 80s, and that projects to be a plus pitch as well. He's got a little bit of command issues, but I feel like you're going to get that with any young pitcher, especially from high school. But it seems like Joey Oakley is somebody that a lot of people are really keen on at the end of the day. Tell us about Owen Hall.
Owen Hall's a right-handed pitcher, 6'3", 185. He bats right, throws right. He's committed to Vanderbilt, and on the day of the draft, he'll be 18 years old, 8 months. Everybody's saying that he's a starter. He's got starter traits. He's fluid and athletic in his delivery on the bump. He's got a very lean frame, and plenty of projection, meaning that he could really grow into that. Again, 6'3", 185. His fastball is really explosive with a ton of late life. So think about like letting it go, and then as soon as it gets to the plate, it has movement, and it can be very deceptive, especially at the top of the zone. And he also has a two-seamer sinker variant at the bottom of the zone. I love that. That feels very Marvel variant. Throws plenty of strikes with his heater, 92 to 95. He's hit 98 in shorter stints. He's got 2 breaking balls, a slider cutter hybrid in the mid 80s. And he's also got a curveball in the mid to upper 70s with a lot of depth. And it really looks good. They do say it kind of lacks some bite and convictions at times. I love the words that that scouts use when they're talking about this. Developing a mid-80s splitter. That's really interesting. He's trying to get consistent with that. Johnny, he is another high school arm, another high school player. And when the Angels have drafted the last couple of years, they've taken a lot of college players. Do you think that the strategy changes because they do need some pitching, but these pitchers are going to have to marinate for a bit? Or do you think that the Angels would move away from these high school guys and go directly to maybe some college pitchers? What do you think the strategy will be?
You know, it's interesting because guys like this, especially when they are committed to a school and they're coming out of high school or prep school, they usually sign at a higher slot than, or a higher salary than the slot usually offers. Yeah. Because teams want to entice them to skip college and come play for this team. And that's really significant. I don't know that the strategy really changes this season with Perry Manassian. I think they surprise us once again, because not everybody was looking at Shaunuel. Not everybody was looking at Neto for first picks the last 2 years, and the Angels really surprised us. I trust Perry to do that again. Not that I wouldn't want to see any of these guys. I really do like the idea of Owen Hall or even Joey Oakey, because I love the fact that Oakey's got that nasty stuff. I think Owen Hall seems like he's built to be a starting pitcher. That slider cutter hybrid kind of makes me nervous. It's like you really want to go with one pitch there in terms of like, because otherwise it's just a soft 80s cutter or, something just kind of, moving across the zone.
Fastball. Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see if he develops that one way or the other. But I would love to have any of these guys come into the Angel system. I just think that their strategy the last few years has been, let's get as many college MLB ready guys out of college as we can.
Sure.
And then they take them at a higher draft pick, but are able to sign them under slot. They're able to sign them for cheaper than what the slot stands for. So all of that to say, I don't think the strategy changes. But Mike, if the Angels have a really low draft pick, I think you got to go for the best available person within that top 5. Like, again, if they end up at like 6, I mean, you got to go for whoever number 6 is in the list of here are the top 10 guys that need to be drafted. And so I do think with the Angels having a chance to be so low in the draft that they will take the best player available. I think whether it's a college guy or a high school guy, I think they got to take advantage of their position right now in terms of having such a low pick.
I think you're right. I do think that also when I look at the list of all the potential players, I think that a lot of them, looking at where they're coming from, a lot of them are high school guys. So it'll be interesting to see what the Angels do if they continue with their same strategy or not.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're here Monday through Friday with all of your Halo content, and you can reach out to us on social media. Johnny, tell them how to do that.
Yeah, get at us at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button. It helps out Mike and I more than you know. And get into our comments. Let us know what you think of these potential draft picks. Let us know what you think of the former Halos who are now in the playoffs, or at least were in the playoffs at some point. And we'd love to hear your comments regarding that. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Phil Nevin always said that this Halo team really needed to work on their focus. They lacked a lot of focus last season. So how can that change this upcoming season? We're going to share some thoughts with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't focused. Sorry. I don't know if I'm ready to have that conversation yet. All right, friends, thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We appreciate you very much. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
All these young guys getting drafted, 18-year-old. Gosh.
What was I doing at 18?
Picking my nose, I guess. I don't know.